Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are ready for a fresh, full scoop of deja vu. That's right, not one, but two episodes from one of your favorite podcast duos when it comes to covering the Braves here on the Hammer Territory Podcast. Myself, Shawn Coleman, along with Stephen Tolbert. Again, you are not having a Groundhog Day experience. We are back and better than ever with a second podcast episode. This time in the first episode, we talked about the Braves re-signing closer Raisel Iglesias. But in this episode, we're going to dissect the other move that the Braves made, the rumored potential move from earlier today, the Braves trading for utility man Mauricio Dubon. And Stephen, hey, always love when you break down anything when it comes to the Braves. There's many different things that this acquisition can mean, but let's first start with the player himself, what his value is to this team, because even though I say utility man, even though I say a name that probably many have attributed to the bench throughout his career, this is someone that could be a very valuable get for Atlanta.
What's up, buddy? Again, for the second time tonight, about literally as we hit stop recording on the Raisel Iglesias contract or the Raisel Iglesias podcast, this news broke. And so we went into full, like, what the hell are we supposed to do here? So we literally stopped that podcast, it's in the editing and uploading process now, and just launched a new one. So it's going to be two emergency shows tonight, but credit to Mark Bowman. He talked about today that the Braves had inquired about Mauricio Dubon, and this is a fascinating move. And we're going to get into the reasons why. But so Dubon is, just to get the particulars out of the way, Dubon is a 31-year-old utility player that's played for the Astros for the last 6 years, something like that. I didn't look and see how long he's been in the majors, but he's been in the majors he's not a young kid. He's not a new player. The Braves did send away Nick Allen. We're going to give a shout out and a send away to Nick Allen at some point in this show. That was the whole trade. Mauricio Dubon for Nick Allen. The Astros are trying to save some money. Dubon is projected to make $6 million in arbitration next year. And this leads to some fascinating conversations about what the Braves are planning at shortstop and what the Braves are planning in the lineup. This is a major utility piece. Dubon literally played all over the diamond last year in a bunch of games. So we're going to get into it. We're going to go in depth and try to figure out what this means. But the ripple effects of this trade are fascinating to me. And, we learned about it 3 minutes ago. So I'm kind of thinking through it all as we talk here. But it's a fascinating little trade.
And Dubon himself is a very unique talent because what he does, he's very, very good at. It's just that there may not be many people who put a lot of value on it. And what Dubon does is that he legitimately is one of the most utilized utility men in Major League Baseball. But not only that, for you to be able to play multiple positions, and I'm talking about 4 to 5 positions, double-digit games, year in and year out like Dubon does, you have to be able to play them at least at a passable level defensively. The calling card for Mauricio Dubon is that he plays nearly every position that he does, which is every outfield position and every infield position besides first base. He plays them at an above average to elite defensive level. He's a 2-time Gold Glove winner when it comes to the utility man role for defense in his career. So we're not just talking about a guy who is capable of playing nearly every position on the diamond. He's capable of playing at an elite defensive level. That carries plenty of value. And it especially comes into play for the Braves for 2 reasons. Number one, when again, like we discussed, a few weeks ago when we did our episode on how important it was for the Braves to potentially get a utility guy, the Braves have had nearly every one of their position player starters miss a significant chunk of time over the past 2 years. That's one. The second thing is that we talked about is how you can't have league worst offensive production up the middle and center field, shortstop, and second base through the first half of the season. Dubon has shown an offensive floor of being slightly above or slightly below league average, which is much better than league worst average. But again, he plays elite defense all across the diamond. That, to a team like the Braves, who has suffered through injuries and has suffered through some bad streaks from multiple position players, that's where the value of adding a player like Dubon comes in.
Yeah, so I'm going to read off what the positions he played. This is just last year with the Astros. So he played 48 games in left field, played 46 games at second base. He played 33 games at shortstop. He played 24 games at third base. He played 17 games in center field. He played 4 games at first base, and he played 3 games in right field. So that's literally all of them, except catcher. He played all the positions. At shortstop specifically, even though he only played 33 games, he was a +8 outs above average in terms of Baseball Savant's metric. So that is incredibly valuable. And like you just said, the Braves have dealt with position player injuries for years. They need somebody who can play all over the diamond. His bat is not good. He's got a career 85 WRC plus, which is very clearly below average. But I do want to point out that there are levels to being a bad hitter. And Nick Allen was the lowest level of bat. Like basically a pitcher was what Nick Allen. Nick Allen was like a 50. I think Nick Allen's career WRC plus was like in the 50s, 54 or something like that. Dubon's is like 85. So even though Dubon is a light hitter, he is a substantially better hitter than Nick Allen. And that matters because it is technically an upgrade. Where it gets fascinating is this. And you brought it up. Dubon is set to make $6 million in arbitration. Assuming the Braves get to arbitration with Dubon, they could sign him to a contract and negate arbitration and change the AAV, and maybe that's the way they go. That's probably what I would do, so I don't have $6 million sitting on the bench if that's what they're going to do. But right now, he's projected to make $6 million in arbitration. I think 5.8 is the actual number. So here's the question we have to ask. Are they planning on Dubon being the starting shortstop? Because again, $6 million is a lot of money to just sit on the bench. Most bench players don't make that much money, especially on a team like the Braves that don't have like a Dodgers level budget. Or are they going to allow him to be the utility player that plays all over the diamond anytime somebody's hurt, anytime somebody needs a day? There's tremendous value in that. We know that. And still go get a shortstop. Because if he's going to be the shortstop, and Scott's been talking about this in our DMs, and he's 100% right. If he's going to play shortstop, the Braves have to go get a big bat somewhere. They have to, because Dubon is not a good enough hitter to be the only offensive upgrade you make to the lineup. So if you're gonna do this as your shortstop, which he can do defensively, and he's an offensive upgrade over Nick Allen, you have to go add a legitimate bat at DH. You just have to. Not knowing what you're going to get from Sean Murphy, Dubon is not good enough on the offensive side of the ball to be the only offensive upgrade for the offseason. If you're not going to do that, if you're still going to go get a shortstop, what this tells me is the Braves have a decent chunk of change to spend this offseason. If they're comfortable having a $6 million guy on the bench as with no clear starting role, like if the Braves go get another shortstop to start, Dubon does not have a place to start on the team. All of the positions are filled by full-time players. So if they're gonna still go get a starting level shortstop and have Dubon on the bench, this tells me the Braves have quite a bit of money to spend, because that's the only reason you would trade for a $6 million utility piece, because especially when you still got to go get a starting pitcher and a shortstop. So that's the question. What role did they just acquire Dubon for? That's what I want. I'm kind of keeping an eye on Twitter to see if any of the beat writers, anybody sends out any clarification. Is he being acquired? They mentioned when they did the blue box in the tweet, they did heavily mention his utility ability, which tells me he could be utility. It's just a lot of money to pay for a utility piece. So that's what I want to know. What did they just acquire him for? Because that changes how I view this trade and what I think what this trade means for the rest of the offseason. So that's the question we need answered. What is Mauricio Dubon? What was he just traded to do? Is he the starting shortstop, or is he the number one utility player on the bench?
AJ, we're going to do things a little bit differently here. I am wearing the Perfect Jean, and I remember seeing ads for the Perfect Jean, like most comfortable fit ever, perfect fit on your body, and I was like, I'm not buying it. Now, I'm buying it, and we're showing it off on FT.
Please get off my desk, first of all, Scott. Second of all, I was with you. I was skeptical about Perfect Jean, and then I got a pair, and the fitting was perfect. And my body's not hard to fit because I got a big old rear and big old legs from years of squatting, and they fit perfectly. They're stretchy, they're comfortable, they're fashionable. They're everything I look for in a jean, and now I have an extra pair, and I'm going to wear them all the time.
FOUL15 is the code at theperfectjean.nyc. FT listeners get 15% off your first order, plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use code FOUL15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with promo code FOUL15. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and tell them Foul Territory sent you.
So, Stephen, you asked the question, you pondered the question, what is Mauricio Dubon on this Braves team? What role is he going to play? And I think that the best answer that I can give to that, just from my perspective, is it's not defined yet. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's a good position for the Braves to be in. What I think the Braves took advantage of doing is, from the Astros' perspective, they made this move for a player that was going to be due $6 million, and they potentially were going to not tender a contract on Friday. They instead went ahead and traded him and got savings in Nick Allen, who they may still non-tender, but at the very least, they got a backup infielder with elite defense at a much cheaper cost. For the Braves, I feel like that his ultimate role in 2026 is not defined yet, but they're okay with that because they've at least raised the floor in multiple ways when it comes to their depth of position players. And we talked about how important that was. We talked about because of the injuries. We talked about how because of the streakiness of some of the position players. We talked about how much of a liability offensively the shortstop role was. If the Braves could find a reliable utility player in a singular source, that helps answer so many of those questions. And they've got that singular source now. Because for the Braves, I agree. Mauricio Dubon being the starting shortstop is probably a little less ideal than him being a clear utility guy. But the point that I want to bring up is this. Say that he is the main shortstop. You've got a guy who still is able to play Gold Glove level defense, which we know Alex Anthopoulos puts a lot of value on. But you also have a guy who, over the past 3 years, has had a 97, 86, and 80 WRC plus overall. With runners on base, he's had 105, 105, and 80 WRC plus over the past 3 seasons overall. Over the past 2 years, the Braves shortstop position has had a 65 WRC plus overall. I've mentioned it before. Many, after going through the past 2 years of having near league worst offensive production from the shortstop position, so many people want a difference maker offensively at the shortstop position. That is just so hard to find. But for a team like the Braves, it is a significant upgrade if you can keep good defense at the position, but have slightly below average to league average offensive production at the position. And that's what Dubon offers. And he's consistently offered that. He's not Ha-Seong Kim, and Ha-Seong Kim still could be in the Braves' plans. But in terms of where they were before this trade versus where they are now, I think it raises the floor, and they can pivot multiple ways, but they're in a better position to pivot based off what comes available to them this offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating. Because it does give you leverage, right? Because now you do have a guy who you can, with a straight face, say, I could start Mauricio Dubon at shortstop and just go get a big bat somewhere else. So, if you're talking to Scott Boras about Ha-Seong Kim, if you have Nick Allen sitting there and everyone knows you don't want to play Nick Allen for 162 games, it's harder to make that argument with a straight face. Now you can say, listen, I got a guy who's a damn good defender. Mauricio Dubon is a fantastic glove at shortstop. And that is what Alex has talked about for years, is the most important part of playing shortstop. On top of the fact that he's just an insane utility player. But he's a great defender. And he does have more offensive upside than Nick Allen, just because Nick Allen is I mean, all due respect to Nick Allen, he was a great defender. Nick Allen is like a pitcher. He was the worst offensive player in baseball. He just had zero offensive upside. Dubon put up like a 97 WRC plus a couple years ago. He put an 85 or 2 years ago. So he does have like offensive capability. Even like with an 80 WRC plus last year, he was like a 2-win player. So you can make the argument he can be the starting shortstop. You just have to go get a big bat somewhere else. You have to. You cannot run this lineup out there with all the struggles they've had the last 2 years and have Mauricio Dubon be the biggest hitter you add. You cannot do that. And so, that's what I'm saying. The ripple effects are fascinating. If, however, he is just going to be the utility guy, this is a home run move. If they're going to still go get a shortstop and a starting pitcher and maybe a DH, and this is just like we're taking advantage of the fact that the Astros needed to clear some money, because Mauricio Dubon is a better player than Nick Allen. This is not a fair trade. This is not an even trade from player to player. Now, Mauricio Dubon is a rental. He's only got team control for one more year, his last year of arbitration. And again, I would not be stunned if we found out in a couple of days the Braves sign him to like a 2-year deal, maybe like a 2-year, $8 million deal where it lowers the AAV so you don't have a $6 million guy sitting on the bench. That wouldn't stun me at all. But I want to know what his role is designed to be. And like you said, Alex may not know. Alex might just be saying, hey, now we have a backstop. We have we have a shortstop in case we can't get something done with Ha-Seong Kim. We have somebody that's better than Nick Allen, that is an upgrade, that, it's a decent plan B. And maybe that's why Alex did. It's it helps me negotiate from a stronger, a stronger place. It's just got so many ripple. It's just, if they want him to be the starting shortstop, and I don't know that, they could still be talking with Ha-Seong Kim right now, but if they want him to be the starting shortstop, they got to go get a big bat. That is, if you take nothing else from the show, if he's the guy, then all right, go get me a real DH, like a real bopper at DH, or another good outfitter, or Byron Buxton. Go give me somebody that's a impact bat somewhere on this roster, because Dubon cannot be that. He will not be that. He's a great defender. He's a great utility piece. He's one of the best utility players in baseball. And if that's what they got him for, then that's awesome. If they got him to be in the starting lineup every day, they need to go get a real bat.
And I think that tying in these two moves together, the re-signing Raisel Iglesias as well as getting Mauricio Dubon today, the real value that comes from this, I think, is that, don't get me wrong, it certainly should be considered a necessity for the Braves to upgrade the rotation, for the Braves to get better in terms of the offense, for the Braves to add multiple pieces to their bullpen. Those are, you can consider necessities. But today, the Braves went out and checked the boxes on the absolute must-haves for this offseason. They got themselves a closer, and a reliable one, in Raisel Iglesias, and they also, at the very least, did get a better option at shortstop than what they had in-house. And if Dubon, instead of being that, can instead be a utility guy, then they did even better, because now they've gotten a singular source, really good insurance for when that injury bug bites again or someone needs an off day. So that's one thing that I will say. Just because it may feel as if there's more uncertainty, or that the ultimate value of this move is going to be more based on what happens in the future, I think in a vacuum, it definitely needs to be said, the Braves took care of multiple absolute must-have moves today, and I applaud Alex for doing that. You've got your reliable closer. You've got a better option, at least, to be your main shortstop, if that's how the offseason winds up playing out. And if not that, you've got one of the best utility man in baseball. And we have been talking all offseason up to this point how that was multiple must-haves for this Braves team to get this offseason.
Yeah. If Dubon was required to be the number one bench guy and be the Mr. Utility all over the field, this is an A++ trade. A+. No brainer. Dubon is better than Nick Allen. Like, just off that alone, it's a great trade. I understand there's different years of service time, but like, Dubon is just better than Nick Allen. If that's what he was acquired for, I love it. If he was acquired to be the starting shortstop, I don't love it. I may love it. Well, no, I'm never going to love it. I may like it depending on what else they do with DH. If he was acquired to be the starting shortstop, I have a lot more questions. We just don't know that yet. And like you said, Alex may not know that yet. I'm very curious to hear when Alex talks. Obviously they just signed Iglesias. I think Alex is probably going to have to speak to the media in the next couple of days just because of the Iglesias signing. This trade will obviously come up. I'm very curious to hear what he says. Like, no, this doesn't change our shortstop plans at all. We're still very much in that market. Or, no, this is the guy we wanted all along. Depending on how he answers. And he may give a non-answer. We might not get any certainty there. But again, how I feel about this is very much tied to the role Dubon is expected to play. And if it's a utility role, this is a home run. And if it's a starting shortstop, I'm much less high on it. And I need to see what else they do, specifically to the lineup, where we've already had questions the last 2 years. You've got Riley coming back from injury. You have no idea what you're going to get from Michael Harris. You have no idea what you're going to get from Ozzie Albies. Like, you just have these big questions. You've potentially lost Marcell Ozuna. The lineup has questions. And part of getting a better shortstop was helping answer some of those lineup questions, not just the defense, but the lineup. So if Dubon is your starting shortstop, we still have a lot of lineup questions that we need answered. So we'll know in the next couple of days, probably when Alex talks, what his role is supposed to be. And that clarity will help guide how I kind of feel about this at the moment.
Correct. And the other thing is that you could see, a bit of offensive upside with Mauricio Dubon as well. The Braves have been able to find that with guys, not necessarily like Dubon, but again, they've had a track record of being able to help guys improve their offensive production than in previous stops. I don't think that there's a ton of offensive upside with Dubon, but again, if you can get a guy at shortstop who can play Gold Glove level defense, like we know Dubon can, and can give you around a 700 or a 700 OPS or better, or an 85 WRC plus or better, that's a really valuable get for a team that has just absolutely had shortstop as a liability. But I agree with you. I do agree with you. If this is the only move that you make to the lineup this offseason, it certainly is underwhelming. But if this is the first move where you're just basically raising your floor in terms of your first bench option, and you've still got plans to go get a clear upgrade, then this is a great move. We'll have to wait for the rest of the offseason to determine that. But I do think that it puts the Braves in a better position to pivot however they want to, because they do have a guy who could play multiple roles, and not only that, excel in that role moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, it just comes down to that. What was the point of this? What exactly is the point of this move? Is he a utility guy or is he the starting shortstop? And that answer changes how I feel. And I've been tracking Twitter the whole time just to make sure, A, we don't get hit with another transaction tonight, and B, to see if anybody on the Braves side was tweeting anything out. A lot of times after a trade, Alex will send out like the group text messages to all the beat writers to explain some of the rationale. I was seeing if any of that was out there. As of the end of this recording, we still don't have a clear answer of what this trade means. And like you said, Alex may not know. He might not have that answer yet. He might just, this is a backup plan, and this is securing the backup plan before you secure the primary plan. And if that's the case, then all right, we'll wait and see what happens. And so that's kind of how we're going to sign off tonight. How I feel about this trade will very much depend on what else happens and where Dubon ends up playing, what his role ends up being. And if it's the starting shortstop, I need a real DH. We have to have a real DH because there's nowhere else to put a big bat, and the Braves need another bat. So, it's pretty cut and dry. If he's the utility guy, this is a fantastic trade. Fantastic trade. I love it. Love it. Love it. I would sign him. I try to sign him to a multi-year deal if I could to be in that role. He is one of the best utility players in all of baseball, and he's a true utility. He can play every spot on the diamond that's not catcher. And he could probably play catcher if he had to, quite honestly. Like, he is a fantastic piece to have on a bench. So we'll just have to wait and see.
But I want to end on this. Again, kind of putting together both podcasts that we've done tonight for the multiple moves the Braves have made. It's November, 19th? And we're talking about the Braves making multiple moves where they're clearly adding payroll and they're clearly getting talent that's going to make them better for next year. That is a significantly better start and more ideal start to this offseason compared to last offseason. Again, I know that it remains to be seen what happens for the rest of this offseason, but I don't think that should go without being stated. What we were hoping to see the Braves do, we've now got valid indications they're looking to do. They're looking to spend money, they're looking to improve the team, and they're looking to address clear needs that have been there for multiple years. And that is a really good way to start this offseason. Now you've got your closer, you've got your utility man, which we talked about being a underrated need. If that guy's your shortstop, that's fine. Go out, make your other big move to make it okay for him to be your shortstop. But at the very least, the Braves have got a couple other more significant needs taken care of to where they can fully focus on the areas starting pitching and adding that other bat that could really be the difference-making moves this offseason.
Yeah, so to put it into context, between last offseason and last trade deadline, so basically the last 12 months, we did one emergency podcast that wasn't injury related. That was, the Braves made a move related, and that was the signing of Jurickson Profar. That was it. That's the only emergency podcast we did last offseason, and we didn't do any at the trade deadline because the Braves didn't do anything at the trade deadline. Tonight, we've done two emergency. So we've done more emergency podcasts tonight than we have in the last 12 months combined. So to your point, it is a much better start. The Braves are clearly going to be active. We just need a little bit more clarity on what this trade means before we can really give okay, I love this. I hate this. I need to see more. And we'll get that. We'll probably get that in the next couple of days. I really do think Alex is going to have to talk to the media at some point here with two big moves happening on the same day. Obviously, Thanksgiving is coming up. We are going to do a show on Friday because it's the non-tender deadline, which now, by the way, includes Mauricio Dubon. Need to add that little nugget in. The Braves, their list of arbitration eligible guys just got increased, or no, it didn't increase by one because Nick Allen was already in the list. So you got to subtract Nick Allen. And then you got to add Mauricio Dubon at a much higher number because Dubon is in his last year of arbitration. It's going to be close to $6 million. He's by far and away their highest ARB guy. So, Friday's deadline just became a lot more interesting because are we going to see a multi-year contract, to be a utility guy? That could answer some of our questions. It's just a fascinating move. And I'm very curious to see the next 24 hours, what news or what, ideas come out of the Braves front office about what this means. And I think that will help guide our opinion a little bit.
Absolutely. We all wanted a busy off season. It seems like we're starting off a beneficial one as well. Again, especially with the Dubon move, the value of that will ultimately depend on what else the Braves do. But again, at the very least, because the Braves have gotten some needs taken care of, they now know how much money they had to attribute to getting those needs taken care of. You've got more certainty on what avenues they can take to really get the difference makers for the rotation and the lineup that we hope that they'll get this offseason. So again, that's part of the benefit that comes from these moves. Steven, anything else from you? I know that we've had plenty to discuss tonight. Again, welcome back to Atlanta, Raisel Iglesias. Welcome to Atlanta, Mauricio Dubon. I think at the end of the day, go ahead.
Sorry, just checking Twitter as we're doing this. Alex Anthopoulos is currently talking to the media. All right, here's what he said. Alex Anthopoulos says Infielder Mauricio Dubon's role will be determined by how the rest of the offseason develops. He says he can do everything except catch. We made the same joke. And he might even be able to do that. He even made our joke. Versatility is very important. He says he feels comfortable with him at shortstop, but expects him to be more of a Swiss Army knife. So, yeah. All right. So, basically what we just said, Alex isn't really even quite sure what the role is. So, that's where we're going to leave it, is if he's the starting shortstop, then I have questions about the lineup and we need to add a bat. If he's the utility, if he's just a Swiss Army knife, old school, just can play everywhere utility player, I love this move. And I don't think Alex knows either yet, so we'll see.
And that's fine. That's why you make these moves early in the offseason. That's why Alex Anthopoulos usually is so active in the offseason. He gets his absolute needs taken care of. And then for the other moves that can pivot a variety of different ways, he at least has got some moves done that makes the team better, so he can pivot in the way that he needs to really make the moves to make the team better. That's kind of what I'm reading from these moves and from his comments. Steven, anything else from you as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast?
No, that's it. I mean, again, it's good to see activity.
Yes.
Right? After last offseason of literally one move happening all offseason and then the trade deadline where nothing happened. It's good to see activity. It's good to see moves. They're clearly addressing stuff. The devil's going to be in the details of exactly what else they do. I still think they need a real shortstop. I don't think Dubon is a large enough upgrade at shortstop to say that this is what I want to happen. And if they don't upgrade at shortstop, then they have to get a DH. It's just there's no two ways about it. They still need starting pitching, and they still need more bullpen help. This should be just two of several emergency podcasts we do over the next few weeks, months, until we get to spring training. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. The moment this stuff drops, we are, coordinating and trying to get a show out, immediately. Obviously tonight we did 2. So make sure you're subscribed. And yeah, it should be a very entertaining and interesting offseason.
And we're going to be right back with you in 48 hours. The Braves deadline when it comes to who they are potentially tendering contracts to. Could there be another trade that happens when it comes to Alex Anthopoulos, trading away guys he may not necessarily want to tender contracts to? Could the Braves make a move for another move where another team doesn't want to pay a guy and they bring him in? Could we see multi-year contracts with a guy like Mauricio Dubon? There's a lot of different moves to make at so many different levels, and that's what makes the offseason exciting. But at the very least, we have proof that the Braves are likely going to be active throughout the rest of the offseason. For Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at _outliers on Twitter/X. My name is Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC on Twitter/X. There's as much of a chance that we'll be with you in 30 minutes as there is going to be Friday night. But regardless of when it happens, we're going to be here for you to cover everything that comes to the Atlanta Braves. Until next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory Podcast.